Welcome to Jags Drive Time with John Oesher and Brian Sexton. Jags Drive Time starts right now.
Hey, they hold the ball a little long on this one. And to the face.
Trevor scrambling to his right, fires. That ball's caught by Evan Ingram to the 5, into the end zone, touchdown. Now a flag came in.
Hands to the face. 94. Boom! Let's go, man.
Good morning and welcome into Jags Drive Time. Brian Sexton along with John Oesher from TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville. Start of the work week, so to speak. Wednesday's the big day when the players return, ready to go, and getting ready for the biggest game of the season, obviously, against the Dallas Cowboys. It was always going to feel that way, John Oesher, because the Cowboys are the Cowboys, but to be in this thing in December creates an even stronger sense of what a meaningful game this one is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't be the biggest feeling game since the Patriots in 18. I mean, I would think that would be the vibe. There's going to be Dallas fans there because Dallas, no matter what stadium you go into, when Dallas is there, there's an element of their fans there. But I think the fans at EverBank, or I'm sorry, at TI Bank Field, will be ready for this one. I think it's going to be electric, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right, let's get right into big things on a Wednesday, and there are some big ones. We'll start with the most wonderful time in 5 years. We go back to December of 2017.
Yeah, that's pretty good there, Brian.
You know, when you work with words, right?
Pretty good.
Words are your word. Right. But you get it. I mean, it's been a long time since this team has played meaningful games in the month of December, and the head coach didn't necessarily expect that this first year on the job he would see this, but he's not exactly shying away from it either.
You want to be playing meaningful games, you know, in December and January, and you know, the last two have been meaningful, obviously, with Baltimore, Detroit. I should say the last three, Baltimore, Detroit, and then Tennessee. And now, you know, moving forward, you know, we have the Cowboys this week, and you know, they're, I believe, 10-3, and they're one of the top teams in the NFC, and they're playing really well, and coming off a good win for them, you know, this weekend. So it's a great opportunity for our team to, you know, I want our guys to experience these moments, you know, because we hope one day that, you know, if things go well, that we're playing and hopefully in the postseason and all that, but these are moments that you want to be in and see where your team actually is against really good opponents.
Grounded checks in as big thing number 2. The Jaguars have not crossed the 100-yard rushing mark as a team since they beat the Raiders here in Jacksonville on the first Sunday of November. In fact, over the last 4 games, they've averaged only 67 yards per game. Now, look, we talked that this is not going to be a ground and pound kind of team like the Jaguars of the old days, but the coach would like to see something more than he's getting from the ground game today.
You know, each week, again, is still kind of a little bit of a work in progress. You know, you try to do some things, and obviously you have enough in your arsenal in the run game to make changes, right? If you want to attack the perimeter and that doesn't work, then you work inside and you do things that way. And but yeah, you'd love to see a little more production there and get more out of it. But again, you look at the game yesterday, and it just happened that throwing the ball was, you know, just as good, you know, than running it. Yeah.
And big things rounds out with, so what now what? I'm still waiting for the t-shirt of this one, John. I mean, I thought it was the quip of the year in a news conference that Doug Peterson had early on when the Jaguars were winning. And, you know, they lost in Detroit, and then they win in Tennessee. And it makes you wonder, okay, what is this team? And the coach says, I'm going to go back to a Gus Bradleyism, if those of you who were here remember, treat both as imposters, adversity and prosperity. And that's kind of what Doug was getting at on Monday when he talked about getting his team focused on the Cowboys.
You know, it's a short-term memory business. You know, it's a 24-hour rule after a game. You know, you're on to the next. And you try to remember what you did last week and build on it and do a little bit more this week. And and then you do more next week, and whatever it is. And I thought the guys really, now we also talked about that loss, how that loss is, how it affects everybody, and guys have a lot of pride, and they don't want to be remembered that way. And so they really took it to heart, had a great week of preparation, and it paid off, right? They went out and they played well. Wasn't perfect, but played well and got the win. And so this week they almost have to forget that, just like you would the film, right? You just put it in the trash can and light it on fire and forget it and move on to, this week.
And there are big things. Hey, I was on the I was on a podcast last night. Shout out to Eric and King and Mike and the guys at Teal Deal Podcast, but they didn't realize this, so I wonder if you do. When was the last time before 2017 that the Jaguars played a meaningful game this late in the season?
10.
Yes, you got it. Most people
Indy.
Forget about that season.
Yeah, up in Indy.
Yeah. Because they lost their last three and finished 8-8, and they don't think about it, but the Jags were 8-5 that year and went to Indy with a chance to beat the Colts and win the division, and they lost it in the third quarter. So twice in the last 12 years, the Jaguars have played this, and it's exciting being around town right now, John, honestly, because everyone is keyed into Sunday.
Yeah, and I've gotten some emails this week because there's always going to be, people who say nay, as we discussed Monday. Yeah. Well, they're 5-8. The division is bad, so that's why they're still in it. Hold your horses and all that. I keep going back to this. You can't control anything in this league, obviously, what other teams do. But secondly, if you start at mid-season, they've played their way into this by beating two contenders. I mean, they beat the Ravens and the Titans.
You bet.
So, sure, the record, they would love the record to be better. And Doug would tell you there's 3 or 4 they left on the table and all that. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But since that Broncos game, which Doug Peterson on the Rich Eisen podcast was pretty good, that he sees that interception by Trevor in Denver as sort of the point where it was a wake-up call.
He said the same thing to me.
And he has been lights out since then. So you say, okay, that's where the learning turned into performance. 3-2 since then, laid an egg, lost to maybe the best team in the league, and beat a couple of contenders, and beat a Raiders team that played pretty well after that game. From the midseason on, they're earning this. And, it is fun. Don't worry about the record. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think that's still a long shot. But what Doug said in one of those clips, use this, get this experience, figure out what it's all about, because you're going to be here at some point.
And quickly, because Bryan Broaddus from 105.3 The Fan in Dallas is going to join us via Skype here in the next segment of our program. Trevor Lawrence, 111.8 passer rating since the beginning of November, second best in the league.
Which is since that Denver game, I guess.
Yep, 72% completions, which is the most in the league. 10 touchdowns, no interceptions, 1,300 yards. He's playing lights out. In fact, he's the AFC Offensive Player of the Week that we've just learned this morning. So congratulations to Trevor Lawrence. He's playing at such a high level. Do you worry about the fact that there is no ground game to speak of over the last couple of weeks?
You would like more, and Doug would like more. But remember, in this offense, look, I'm not saying they wouldn't like to be running the ball better right now, but Doug also believes if you're effective throwing it, throw it. And the threat of the run is as important in the modern NFL as actually running. And it does feel still in the last 3 or 4 weeks, they're not running as effectively, but the Titans clearly had an idea they were not going to run the ball and win that game. So if teams are taking it away, now you got a quarterback who can throw it. You don't want to get to a point where teams just know you can never run in any circumstance, because then it's a Katie bar the door on the quarterback. I don't think they're as worried or panicky about the run game as maybe some people in the media will be this week, because I think they sort of know what it is.
Well, I think it bears mentioning because the Cowboys have 48 sacks. They're just one off of the league lead at this point, 48 sacks. So if you think you're going to protect your quarterback and have him drop back and throw the ball 41 times, think again, you're going to need to be able to run the ball to some extent on Sunday. We're going to talk about the Cowboys with a longtime NFL scout, once here in Jacksonville, turned media savant with the Dallas Cowboys and now 105.3 The Fan. Bryan Broaddus joins us next. Jaguars drive time and Sunday's game against the Cowboys is presented by Renewal by Anderson. A better way to a better window. RBAFLA.com. Renewal by Anderson presents the Dallas Cowboys game this Sunday. It's a 1 o'clock kick, and of course, we'll have all the coverage all week long leading up to the biggest game of the season for the Jaguars. Bryan Broaddus when we return. A Dream Finder's home is an amazing way to celebrate the holidays. Unwrap your family's future in a new St. Johns County community like Shearwater or Beacon Lake as 2022 comes to a close and 2023 awaits. What could be better than an expertly built, energy-efficient, move-in ready Dream Finder's home to enjoy everything that makes the holiday season merry and bright? How about an interest rate lock special from Dream Finders, which will secure your new home at a big savings? It's the holiday gift that keeps on giving. Happy holidays to all from Dream Finders Homes. Visit dreamfindershomes.com.
Frank Frangie here. When you want barbecue in Jacksonville, you want Bono's Pit Barbecue. You can find Bono's locations all around town and on game day at TIAA Bank Field because Bono's is the official barbecue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bono's is currently expanding its brand with franchise opportunities throughout the Southeast and beyond. Over 70 years of authentic Southern pit barbecue and owning your own business are a great combo. Go to bonosbarbq.com to learn more or call 904-880-8310 today. And remember, if you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Crown Royals That Deserves a Crown program recognizes local heroes for making a positive impact in the community. The Jaguars and Crown Royal are giving back to those who served this season, celebrating these individuals with the ultimate VIP Jaguars home game experience. Nominate someone who deserves a crown today at jaguars.com/Crown Royal Promotion. Please drink responsibly.
Back to Jags Drive Time, presented by Jet Home Loans, and Price.com presents this or that on a weekly basis here on the program. Price.com is the easiest way to save money with comparison shopping, cashback coupons, all in one. It's free. Try Price.com today.
This or that. This or that.
All right, Bryan Broaddus will join us in a couple of minutes here on Jags Drive Time. Until then, time for this or that. John, where are you?
My this or that is who will follow up last week's big game of the big game, Josh Allen or Trayvon Walker? And I think it'll be Josh Allen, but I mainly picked this topic because Trayvon Walker, it appears, he has an ankle injury, and I don't know what it appears because Doug Peterson will address it probably in about an hour at his news conference. But I picked the topic because I think Josh Allen, this is the kind of game, Brian, where he could get back to what he was. He had this game against Buffalo last year. Everybody remembers we had the sack, the fumble, the interception. This is a big game against a marquee team. And I just wonder if maybe this won't be a game where Josh Allen, again, shows that he's not just the other Josh Allen.
You know, I don't know, obviously, about the ankle and Trayvon, but Josh Allen, I've talked to him a lot in the locker room this season, and I've noticed, I don't want to say desperation, because that's the wrong term, but there's just this intensity about getting going again. Yeah. And it was almost relief in his eyes in the postgame in Nashville, because this is a big season for him. This was a prove-it moment for him, and so far he hasn't gotten it done. So I'm going to go with Josh Allen. He came through in the biggest of ways against the other Josh Allen last year in a big game against the Buffalo Bills. And I just get this sense their offensive line has some issues, and we'll talk with Bryan Broaddus about that. This might be the day that he goes off.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think he has played overall as poorly as maybe even he thinks, because he was so juiced up to get sacks and to have that MVP type year. And that's tough that can be tough for a defensive end, because it is such a cruel position sometimes. You can play well, not get sacks, and everybody thinks you stink. it's usually not the case. But I think Josh maybe a little bit has felt that a little bit, and I think it's frustrating with reason. But I don't know that. I mean, it doesn't make him a bad player. It just means he's having trouble getting those numbers and the results that he wants.
Well, what you said is absolutely true about the pass rush not always getting home. And that's something that Bill Shuey said to me last week when I talked to him for pregame radio, and that is if you do everything right, there still is a circumstance there, right? Yeah. Can the back end hold up for an extra second to allow you to get there? Is there a stunt that's being played, and does the guy who's running the stunt with you go to the right gap? I mean, there's all sorts of little things there.
Dwight Freeney once told me he considered his best pass rushing year, and this was probably 2008, so he still had some years left. But at the time, he was in his 7th year, had been to Pro Bowls. He considered his best pass rushing year he got 4.5 sacks.
All right.
Because the circumstances just didn't dictate where he got home.
Absolutely. Getting there and getting home are two entirely different things. All right, time for mine. And I'm going to ask you this, John. Which one of these two players is the one who can just kill the Jaguars' playoff hopes? Not that this game and a loss would absolutely kill the playoff hopes, but which one of these guys would put the needle in the balloon fastest? Prescott, obviously, the quarterback of an offense that scores 28 points a game, and Parsons leads the sack attack that has 48 quarterback sacks this year. Which one?
Yeah, it's tough. I'm going to go with Parsons. And Dak will go have a big game and prove me wrong because they're both so dangerous. But I feel like the defense feeds off Parsons. He's a guy who can make plays, sack, fumble. A big play by Parsons would feel like Dallas is doing what they want and dominating. I think the Cowboys are going to make some plays offensively, so Dak having a play or two doesn't worry as much as if a defensive guy does it. It's just dangerous. And Dak, unlike some past years, he's had some interceptions this year, a little more than he usually does. To me, that's the key. I think the Jaguars have to take advantage of one of those opportunities that he may give them.
Well, I'm going with Parsons as well because he's got 12 sacks, and he leads a barrage of Dallas players who have more than 5. Dante Fowler Jr. is one of those as well. You see the pressure that he gets. 22 quarterback hits, 13 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. All due respect to Prescott and the 98-yard game-winning drive that he orchestrated last week against the Texans. This guy here, if he's getting to the quarterback, bad things are happening and the offense is in trouble. And we all know that the Jaguars' defense needs the offense putting up points and giving them better opportunities. So I'll go with Micah Parsons being the guy that can create the most havoc. All right, Jaguars Game Day Radio is brought to you by our friends at VyStar. VyStar, do good, bank better. When we return, as promised, from 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, Bryan Broaddus joins us to talk about the Cowboys. This holiday season, unwrap a brand new Dreamfinders home. You'll enjoy everything that makes the holidays merry and bright with family and friends in an expertly built, energy-efficient Dreamfinders home. What could be better than calling one of St. Johns County's magnificent communities such as Shearwater, Beacon Lake, or Silverleaf home as 2022 comes to a close and an exciting new year begins. Plus, with an interest rate lock special from Dreamfinders Homes, the timing is perfect to be in a gorgeous move-in ready home. Happy holidays to all from Dreamfinders Homes. Visit DreamfindersHomes.com.
At VyStar Credit Union, you inspire them to go the extra mile to meet your financial needs. That's why they offer Jaguars fans more banking options like better rates and no hidden fees. Their team is also dedicated to making the communities they serve stronger, volunteering their time and talents while donating millions to local nonprofits. VyStar Credit Union, VyStarCU.org. Go Jags!
Your hometown gate now has more ways to save. Introducing My Gate Rewards, a new loyalty program with member-exclusive savings and fuel discounts. Earn points on in-store purchases, take advantage of special offers, and save on products you love. Score free coffee, fountain drinks, pizza, and soft serve with Gates frequent shopper clubs. Then use your points on savings at the pump. Download the My Gate Rewards app in the App Store today or ask a store associate for more information. Go from good to Gate.
And welcome back, Jags Drive Time on a Wednesday morning from TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville. Brought to you, as always, by our friends at Publix. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Brian Sexton along with John Oesher, and an old friend joins us now, Bryan Broaddus from 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. Bro, good morning. I'm going to beef you up. Don't say anything. Brian won a Super Bowl with the Packers in their scouting department, then came here for a season in 1998 before going on to Dallas. And next to Tom Coughlin, nobody was as patient with a young broadcaster, and he used to let me sit in his office and watch tape deep into the night, way before I had kids. Nobody understands the game and can explain it as well from a media perspective, at least to my way of thinking, as you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Let me return the praises. Nobody taught me how to eat crab legs faster than you did when we used to go out and hang out at out there and at the various places that we used to go. But I always enjoyed being with you. I love the fact that you were so interested in the game and wanted to learn so much about the game. So, it was my pleasure for sure.
Well, let's dive right into it, my friend. And we'll start with this. Micah Parsons, you heard our last segment. I think he is the best player on the Cowboys. Agree or disagree? On a star-studded roster, he's the guy that makes it go.
Oh, absolutely. There was a time where we always were talking about Tyron Smith, and then Zach Martin came along. There was a time with Ezekiel Elliott, that you might have thrown him in. But this organization caught a huge break with Micah Parsons. When we were evaluating him coming out of Penn State, the COVID year, not playing and all that, and you really were in one of those modes where you were trying to figure out, wow, this is an off-ball linebacker. They traded back. They were able to grab him. But it took an injury to DeMarcus Lawrence and for him to kind of get the recognition. Dan Quinn in week 2 said, listen, we need a pass rusher against the Chargers. And, Micah Parsons became that guy. And then you started to see the power, the explosiveness, the quickness. He had a real feel for how to do it. And, it just really kind of blossomed from that time that Dan Quinn has moved him around and really played to his strengths. And it was really funny because evaluating him at Penn State, I would challenge anybody to find the film of him as a really like a defensive end pass rusher. I mean, he was a damn good linebacker, but the pass rush stuff was something that really the Cowboys did a good job of getting that out of him.
Brian, take me through the Cowboys offense. Good to talk to you again, by the way. I remember from the 90s, we talked a little bit.
Yeah.
Always enjoyed you. Offensively, this team overall and offensively, they look so dominant in terms of talent. But offensively, if they have an Achilles heel, if teams get them, where do they get the Cowboys, if you follow me?
Well, John, it's really teams have kind of figured out, and last week the Texans did something that teams had been doing last year to this offense, and that was playing a lot of cover 2 with those 2 safeties off the hash. And so teams that have blitzed Dak Prescott have kind of learned that that's probably not the best way to go. He's good at handling the blitz. He's good at getting rid of the ball. But teams that play what we call clog and cover with that 2-deep look, they rush 4, drop 7, and they make him have to read the field. And they just didn't do a very good job last week until the final drive. Lovie Smith, really the majority of the game, played that cover 2 look. And it really does affect Dak Prescott because, he's struggling, as you guys mentioned, with the interceptions. He struggles at times finding those open receivers, and they just haven't been able to get open. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if going forward when you play the Cowboys that maybe that we see other teams say, wow, the Denver Broncos last year had a plan for how to play, and teams took advantage of that, went away from that, and then we saw it again because Lovie Smith being a big 2-deep guy. It kind of came back, and it looked like that Dak had problems again until that final drive, kind of picking that thing apart.
Brian, we've seen some good 1-2 running back tandems in Jacksonville. James Stewart and Fred Taylor, as you'll remember. Fred Taylor and Maurice Jones-Drew. Give me your sense of this group with Pollard and Elliott averaging 145 rushing yards a game. Both those guys are approaching 1,000 yards. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see both of them get there, which is an amazing feat. Has only happened, I think, 4 times in the modern era of professional football. They're the engine, right?
Oh no, it's funny. I got in trouble with Jerry Jones during training camp because I asked him, I go, "Do you feel like you wasted Tony Pollard's career?" He's in his last year of his deal here in Dallas, and they finally figured out how to play him. It used to be that Elliott would play, the first 2 or 3 series, and then Pollard would come in for 1 series, and then you wouldn't see him again. But now you've got Tony Pollard where he's finishing games. And that's something that, they hadn't done before. So, you get into the 4-minute drive, and then all of a sudden, Tony Pollard's on the field running the football. And there's just been they finally, I could say, the balance there has been really, really good between the two. And the coaches have figured out, it doesn't matter. If one gets, we had a game the other day where Pollard actually had more carries than Elliott. And I can't ever remember that ever happening here. So they've, they've got that with that 1-2 punch, and they'll also put them on the field together at the same time. You get down in the red zone, you'll see them use Pollard as like a wing or a receiver or a slot, and run plays off that with both those guys being on the field. So it's really, really helped the offense, the balance. This team is, it struggles when Dak Prescott throws the ball more than 40 times. That's been a big issue here. And so, it's the running game has given them that balance that, and not 50-50 split, but it's taken some of the pressure off Dak having to throw the ball.
Brian, what's different about this version of the Cowboy? There's been so much talk over 25 years that they haven't made the Super Bowl, a lot of talented teams. I look at this Dallas team and I can envision it holding up the trophy. What's different about it that might enable them to do that?
I think, John, it's going to be about the defense here. I really do. Now they've got some issues at corner. They've got to figure out what they're going to do opposite Diggs, with Kelvin Joseph playing, Deron Bland, they're trying to figure out some things. This team has lost 2 of the starting 3 cornerbacks this year, and so they're trying to replace that. The thing is they've gotten better playing run defense. It'll be a challenge again this week for them. But there was some real problems early in the season with perimeter runs, and they've kind of shored that up. Losing Jonathan Hankins will hurt them a little bit inside. He's done a really, really nice job. But if they're going to win this thing, it's going to be about the defense. It's going to be about them because they're going to play some teams that are in the playoffs potentially. The 49ers, super physical team. That was a problem for them last year. So, they have to be tougher than they were. And I think this defense has shown that they can be tougher. And, their ability to rush the passer is really unmatched in the league. If they get you and make you one-dimensional, they find ways to cause problems. And I think that's something, if as long as they can choke that run, then they're going to find a way to rush the passer. And I think that's the ticket for them potentially, winning that Super Bowl you're talking about.
All right, 2 quick questions for you. As I mentioned off the top, nobody watches film like you do. So your impressions of Trevor Lawrence the last month, because I know you spent time looking at the tape.
Yeah, I did. And you know what? I'll tell you what, though. I really I'm a big fan of Doug Peterson. I go all the way back. Doug and I are actually really, really close. And, he was with us in Green Bay when we won the Super Bowl. And I share great stories with him. And every time that you guys win, I send him a text and say congratulations, and he gets back with me. That's what he needed. That's what Trevor Lawrence needed. He needed some stability, with his play caller, with the way he was being coached. You could see the talent. Just go back and watch him play. And, the thing I was worried about was just the revolving door, the different things that were going on. You didn't want the kid to be ruined. But I'll tell you what, man, his ability to move around in the pocket, his ability to deliver the football, the weapons, the movement that you guys have, the ability to run. I really do think that it's the best fit for him to have a guy like Doug Peterson, helping him along and developing him, because you could see it in the way he plays. You really, really can. And so I'm impressed. I think this is going to be a very difficult game for Dallas to win, believe it or not. And I just kind of feel like that Jacksonville is on a little bit of a roll defensively, but with the way the quarterback's playing, this will be a tough test for the Cowboys.
And final thought. Look, you came to Jacksonville from Green Bay, so from one small market to the other. And then, of course, you went to Dallas, which is America's team, and everyone knows that whole story. But you've been one of the biggest proponents of Jacksonville as an NFL market. I mean, you and I have talked about this over 25, 26 years. Would you just share your thoughts with our viewing audience as someone from the biggest of markets and what you think of Jacksonville as an NFL town?
First off, Brian, I loved living in Jacksonville. I really did. I thought, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, like you mentioned, Green Bay, Philadelphia, some big places, like Philadelphia and Dallas, of course. But yeah, I mean, the smallest market there in Green Bay, that was a great experience for me. It was all about football, and it wasn't about being, there wasn't this glamorous thing about it at all. It was just really about football, and that's what I really appreciated. What I appreciated is going to school at LSU and then having the appreciation of having to deal with the Florida Gator fans and stuff like that, and making those trips from Baton Rouge to Gainesville and stuff. That part of the country loves football. Very knowledgeable football fans. I've always been super impressed by the passion that they have for the game and the love of the game. All I think they've ever wanted was to be able to back a team that's a winner. And I think they've got the stability now. Again, I talk about Doug Peterson. I think Jacksonville is on the way of building something. That Urban Meyer thing, and I'm going to be the first one to admit I was completely wrong about Urban Meyer, because I've seen the different programs that he was able to build. So I was completely wrong myself as a guy, a former football guy. But the fans in Jacksonville deserve more. They deserve to have a winner. Because again, those fans are super fans. They were great to me when I was there. We had good football teams too. That was something that was always important. But I think ownership there. I think that the coach there, the front office. We'll see how that all plays out. But I'm a big fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm a fan of their fans as well, because I think they're really, really passionate and they love the game.
Well, a lot of people have heard me or others say that Jacksonville could be the Green Bay of the South. Bryan Broaddus was the first person to coin that phrase to me in 1998. If I don't connect with you, Merry Christmas. And thank you so much for your time and your insight on the Cowboys. We're looking forward to a big game on Sunday.
Well, thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And take care of my guys down there. Don't beat up on them too bad or anything like that. You guys are on a little bit of a roll. I watched the Lions game. I get it. But that team's going the right direction there. It'll be fine again. Trust me. But thank you. Happy holidays to you guys as well.
Got it. Longtime NFL executive, now with 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, Bryan Broaddus. We'll come back and wrap up Jags Drive Time on a Wednesday and get you ready for the Cowboys right after this. A Dream Finder's home is an amazing way to celebrate the holidays. Unwrap your family's future in a new St. Johns County community like Shearwater or Beacon Lake as 2022 comes to a close and 2023 awaits. What could be better than an expertly built, energy-efficient, move-in ready Dream Finder's home to enjoy everything that makes the holiday season merry and bright? How about an interest rate lock special from Dream Finders, which will secure your new home at a big savings? It's the holiday gift that keeps on giving. Happy holidays to all from Dream Finders Homes. Visit dreamfindershomes.com.
Jags fans, this is Shaquille Griffin. I'm going to share some of my secrets for competing in the NFL. First, the field is no place for hunger. Growing up, I got big and strong eating boiled peanuts. Today, our team is serious about fueling our bodies, and that means popping open some protein-packed peanuts from Luray's Peanuts. It's the same boiled peanut flavor I used to love eating as a kid, but with superfood nutrition that lets me tear it up on the field, pick Luray's boiled peanuts at all Jaguar home games, or pick up a few bags at the grocery store and fuel up at home.
At 5-Star Credit Union, you inspire them to go the extra mile to meet your financial needs. That's why they offer Jaguars fans more banking options like better rates and no hidden fees. Their team is also dedicated to making the communities they serve stronger. volunteering their time and talents while donating millions to local nonprofits. ViStar Credit Union, ViStarCU.org. Go Jags!
Well, for 9 years, Dreamfinders Homes has been proud to call themselves the official home builder of the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can visit dreamfindershomes.com for all their available inventory and their holiday specials. And the folks over at Dreamfinders, led by Patrick and company, say, go Jags. Brian Sexton, John Oesher, back to wrap it up. Doug Peterson talked on Monday about how takeaways were the driving factor in success, right? That's the thing I think that when you look at the Jaguars and the ability to beat the Cowboys on Sunday, they got to keep taking the ball away.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a great defense, and I don't think it's going to be yet. It's not there yet personnel-wise. And when I say that, I mean, they're not going to shut you down. They're not going to be at the top of the league standings. But they have been very, very good at times taking the ball away. And when they've been good at times, in that area, that is when they have felt like a very, very good defense. Early in the season, you feel like they were on a roll with it. They got 4 last week. They got some breaks with it. To me, for this team, turnovers are all about taking advantage of the opportunity. They're going to be there. There's probably going to be a ball on the ground. There's going to be a ball in the air that you can get. If you see them pounding their fist on the ground after not getting one, I think they're in trouble. I think they have to take advantage of the opportunities when they're there on Sunday.
All right, we're getting ready to go listen to Doug Peterson. Of course, we'll have him here for you on Jaguars.com. John, who's in the Ozone podcast this week?
We were trying to get Cam Robinson. I'm waiting for confirmation, but we'll see.
All right, stay tuned for that one, folks. And thanks to everyone, Joe and Brent and the whole crew that makes this show as good as it can be every single episode. We'll see you tomorrow for Jags Drive Time. Have a great Wednesday, everybody.